Three churches, three claims. And only one question that matters. The Catholic Church says it was founded by Jesus Christ himself, and that an unbroken chain of leaders connects the Pope in Rome today to the Apostle Peter in the 1st century. The Eastern Orthodox Church says the same thing, except in their telling. It was Rome that walked away from the original church, nearly 1,000 years ago. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, makes the boldest claim of all. That both of those churches lost the truth centuries ago. That the original Church of Christ vanished from the earth entirely. And that it was restored not in Jerusalem, not in Rome, but in upstate New York, in 1830, through a farm boy named Joseph Smith. Each of these churches claims to be the true continuation of the church Jesus established. They cannot all be right. So tonight, we're going to put all three claims side by side, examine the historical record, and ask the question none of them can avoid. Which one is actually closest to the original church? The answer may not be what you expect. Welcome back to Solvanae, the channel where we examine religious history, institutions, and belief with clear eyes and an open mind. If you're new here, this is what we do. We don't mock faith and we don't preach it. We study it. We look at documents, dates, councils, and claims, and we let you draw your own conclusions. If that approach appeals to you, take a moment right now to subscribe and turn on notifications. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and it tells us that this kind of serious, respectful religious history is worth making more of. Now, before we can judge which church is closest to the original, we have to answer a harder question first. What exactly was the original church? Around the year 30 of the Common Era, a small movement formed in Roman-occupied Judea around the figure of Jesus of Nazareth. After his crucifixion, his followers, led by men like Peter, James, and later Paul, began organizing communities across the Eastern Mediterranean, Jerusalem, Antioch, Corinth, Ephesus, and eventually Rome itself. Historians can tell us a few things about these earliest communities with reasonable confidence. They met in private homes, not church buildings. There were no cathedrals, no basilicas. Those came centuries later. Leadership was local and somewhat fluid. The New Testament letters mention overseers, elders, and deacons, but the neat layered hierarchy we recognize today took generations to develop. They shared a communal meal. They baptized converts. And they expected, many of them, that Christ would return within their own lifetimes. That is the church all three of our contenders claim to continue. But notice something. Each of them defines continuation differently, and this is the key that unlocks the entire debate. For Catholics and Orthodox, the test is succession, an unbroken chain of ordained bishops, hand to head, generation after generation, going all the way back to the apostles. As long as the chain is intact, the church is the same church, no matter how much its buildings, rituals, or theology have developed. For Latter-day Saints, the test is the opposite. It's restoration. In their telling, the chain did break, completely, and the only way back to the original church was for God to start it again from scratch. Two completely different tests. And here's the uncomfortable part. Whichever test you choose largely decides the winner before the evidence is even examined. What do you think? Is a church defined by its unbroken history, or by its teachings? Pause and tell me in the comments. I read them, and this question splits the audience every single time. Let's start with the largest contender. The Roman Catholic Church, with roughly 1.4 billion members, rests its claim on a single verse and a single man. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, Jesus says to Peter, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." Catholic teaching holds that Peter traveled to Rome, led the Christian community there, and was martyred under the Emperor Nero around the year 64. Every pope since, the Church counts more than 260 of them, is regarded as Peter's direct successor. The historical strengths of this claim are real. There is early evidence that Christians venerated Peter's memory in Rome. By the 2nd century, a bishop named Irenaeus was already listing the bishops of Rome in sequence and treating that succession as a mark of authentic teaching. By the 4th and 5th centuries, the Bishop of Rome was claiming a special primacy, a first place of honor, and, increasingly, of authority over the whole Christian world. But historians raise two complications. First, the earliest lists of Roman bishops were compiled decades after the fact, and scholars debate whether Rome in the 1st century even had a single ruling bishop, rather than a council of elders leading together. The office of pope as we know it, a supreme monarchical head of the global church, developed gradually, over centuries. Second, the interpretation of "on this rock." Catholics read the rock as Peter himself, and by extension his successors. Orthodox Christians and Protestants have historically read it differently, as Peter's confession of faith or as Christ himself. The verse everyone agrees on becomes the verse no one agrees about. So the Catholic claim is one of remarkable institutional continuity. Whatever else one says, there is a documented, functioning institution in Rome whose leadership lists stretch back to the ancient world. Very few organizations on earth can say that. But continuity of an institution is not the same as sameness of the original. And that distinction is exactly where our second contender enters the story. Travel east, to Constantinople, Antioch, Alexandria, Jerusalem, and you meet a church that looks at Rome and says, with complete calm, "You are the ones who changed." The Eastern Orthodox Church, home to roughly 220 million believers, shares the first 1,000 years of Christian history with Rome. Same councils, same creeds, same saints. For 10 centuries, East and West were, at least formally, one church. Then came the year 1054, the Great Schism. The rupture had many causes. Language. The West spoke Latin, the East spoke Greek, and they were slowly ceasing to understand each other, in every sense. Politics. The rise of new Western empires pulled Rome away from Constantinople's orbit. And theology. The West had added a single Latin word, filioque, to the shared creed, a change the East regarded as both doctrinally wrong and procedurally illegitimate, because Rome had altered a universal creed without a universal council. In 1054, a papal delegation placed a document of excommunication on the altar of the great church of Hagia Sophia in Constantinople. The Patriarch of Constantinople responded in kind. Each side, in effect, expelled the other from the original church. And here is the first great twist of this story. But both the Catholic and Orthodox churches claim the exact same unbroken succession from the exact same original church. For 1,000 years, their chain of history is literally identical. The question of who is the original between them is really the question of who walked away in 1054. Rome says the East fell out of communion with Peter's successor. The East says Rome elevated one bishop above the church and changed the faith to do it. Same evidence, opposite verdicts. Orthodox Christians add one more argument, and it's a serious one. Worship. Attend an Orthodox liturgy today, and you will hear services whose core structure goes back over 1,500 years, in churches that never underwent a reformation, never modernized their rites in any sweeping way, and pride themselves on changing as little as possible. Their claim, in essence, if you want to see the ancient church, come and stand in it. Here's a question for you before we move on. If two churches share the same first 1,000 years, can either one truly call itself older than the other? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to see how you reason through it. Because our third contender is about to reject the entire premise of this debate. Everything we've discussed so far assumes the original church survived. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints begins with the assertion that it did not. According to LDS teaching, after the death of the apostles in the 1st century, the church did not merely evolve or drift. It fell completely. Latter-day Saints call this the Great Apostasy, the loss of priesthood authority from the earth. In this telling, the councils, the creeds, the popes, the patriarchs, all of it, however sincere, was Christianity without authorization. The lights were on, but the keys were gone. Then, in 1820, in the woods of western New York, a 14-year-old named Joseph Smith reported a vision. He said God the Father and Jesus Christ appeared to him and told him to join none of the existing churches. Over the following decade, Smith said he received golden plates from an angel named Moroni, translated them into the Book of Mormon, and received priesthood authority directly from resurrected biblical figures, John the Baptist, and then Peter, James, and John themselves. In 1830, he formally organized the church, not as a reform of Christianity, as a restoration of the original apostles, prophets, revelation, and all. And this produces the second great twist of our story. The Mormon claim doesn't compete with the Catholic and Orthodox claims. It depends on both of them being false. If either Rome or Constantinople preserved genuine authority, there was nothing to restore, and the entire foundation of the LDS Church collapses. Restoration requires apostasy the way a rescue requires a shipwreck. Latter-day Saints point to features of their church that They argue match the first century pattern better than anyone else's. Living apostles and prophets. An unpaid lay clergy, no professional priesthood. Continuing revelation rather than a closed canon. Missionary work is a core duty of ordinary members. And they note fairly that the earliest Christians were also a small, new, misunderstood movement led by a man who claimed direct communication with heaven. Critics, Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, and secular historians alike respond on two fronts. Historically, they note there is no independent first-century evidence for the Book of Mormon civilizations in the Americas, and that the restoration rests entirely on the testimony of Joseph Smith and a small circle around him. Theologically, they point out that LDS doctrine departs from all ancient Christianity on the most fundamental question of all, the nature of God. Latter-day Saints teach that the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are three distinct beings, that God the Father has a glorified physical body, and that human beings may progress toward godhood. Every ancient creed, East and West, teaches something radically different. One God, without body, eternally and uniquely divine. To be clear, as always on this channel, these are the claims of the respective traditions, presented for your understanding, not endorsed. You are watching this to see the map, not to be told where to live on it. But the LDS response to the doctrinal criticism is itself revealing. They argue that the creeds are precisely the evidence of apostasy, that the councils of the 4th century, held under Roman emperors and shaped by Greek philosophy, redefined God in terms the fishermen of Galilee would never have recognized. Which forces us finally to the question underneath every other question in this video. What did the original church actually look like? Because we're about to hold all three claims up against it, and none of them comes through untouched. Let's do what none of these churches can do for themselves. Judge them from the outside. Historians generally measure closeness to the original in three ways. Watch what happens when we apply each one. Test 1. Continuity. An unbroken institutional line back to the apostles. Here, Catholicism and Orthodoxy stand together, and Mormonism doesn't compete at all. It openly declares the line broken. Between Rome and the East, the honest answer is that for 1,000 years the line is shared, and after 1054 each preserves it in its own communion. On pure continuity, it is essentially a tie between the two ancient churches, and by its own admission, a claim the LDS Church never makes. Test 2. Worship and practice. What would a first-century Christian recognize? Here it gets interesting. The Orthodox liturgy is widely regarded as the most conservative, least changed form of ancient Christian worship still practiced at scale. Catholic worship shares that ancient root, but has been reformed and revised more extensively, especially in the 20th century. And LDS services, hymns, sermons, a weekly bread and water sacrament in a plain chapel, look nothing like a Byzantine liturgy. But here is the third twist of this story. They may accidentally resemble the first-century house church more than the cathedrals do. Small congregations, lay leaders, simple rooms. No incense, no icons, no marble. The earliest Christians had none of those things either, not because they rejected them, but because they were a poor, sometimes persecuted minority meeting in living rooms. Grandeur came later, with legality and empire. Test 3. Doctrine. What did the first Christians believe about God? This is where the gap opens widest. Whatever debates raged in the early centuries, the ancient church consistently confessed one eternal God and condemned the idea of humans becoming gods in any literal sense. Catholic and Orthodox theology grew directly out of those ancient debates and creeds. LDS theology consciously rejects those creeds. So on the doctrine of God, the question the early church considered most important of all, the two ancient churches stand near the historical mainstream of early Christianity, and the LDS Church stands, by its own design, outside it. So which is closest to the original church? If your test is unbroken history, Orthodoxy and Catholicism, with the East holding a slight edge in unchanged worship. If your test is the look and feel of a first-century congregation, the Latter-day Saints can claim some surprising, if unintended, resemblances. If your test is the ancient church's own creeds, the Restoration claim fails by definition because it rejects them. And if your test is the church exactly as it existed in the year 40 house meetings, number creeds yet written, no hierarchy yet settled, no New Testament yet compiled, then the most uncomfortable finding of this entire investigation is this: no church on earth today is that church. Every single one, including all three of our contenders, is the product of 2,000 years of development, decision, and change. The only disagreement is which changes were growth and which were betrayal. Three churches looked at the same distant origin and drew three different maps back to it. Rome drew a straight line of succession and called it the Rock. Constantinople drew the same line and said Rome stepped off it. And a young man in New York said the line had snapped centuries before either of them noticed, and that heaven itself had to reconnect it. What this investigation really reveals is not which church wins. It's that original is not a fact you can dig out of the ground. It is a standard you choose. Continuity or purity, institution or restoration, the chain or the pattern. And every believer in every tradition has already chosen whether they realize it or not. So now I'll ask you directly, by your standard, history, worship, or doctrine, which of these three claims came out strongest tonight? And which argument surprised you? Tell me in the comments below. The comment section on videos like this is often better than the video itself, and I read as much of it as I can. If this kind of careful, respectful religious history is valuable to you, subscribe to Solvanae and turn on the notification bell, because next time we're opening a file that one of these churches would very much prefer stayed closed. Until then, keep asking the questions that institutions hope you won't. This has been Solvanae. Thank you for watching.